Okay, everybody. I think we're all set to get started. Thank you for bearing with us. I believe the conference room is now connected. So again, I'd like to welcome everybody for today's informational community session for the Zero Emission Passenger Rail and Trail Project, which we also refer to as ZEPRT. My name is Tiffany Mendoza, and I will be moderating tonight's meeting. Before we dive into the presentation, I would like to go over a few Zoom logistics. First, please note that this meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the project website, along with recordings of the prior informational sessions, which are now available. The meeting is available in both English and Spanish. In order to access the Spanish audio channels, in just a moment, we will open the interpretation channel that will show as a globe icon in the Zoom taskbar. When that appears, you can click on it and select your preferred language of English or Spanish. And at this time, I will pause so that this message can be repeated in Spanish.
Sí, buenas tardes a todos. Para interpretación en español por Zoom, por favor busquen el símbolo del mundo terráqueo en la parte baja de su pantalla que dice Language Interpretation o Interpretación de Idioma y haga clic en español. En el submenú que dice More o Más, busque, o ahí puede optar más bien, por escuchar solo la interpretación al español y no a los oradores originales al hacer clic en Mute, Original Audio o silenciar el audio original. Por favor, por último, haga clic ahí para iniciar la interpretación en su idioma. Desde una tableta o celular, en Zoom, busquen 3 puntitos con la palabra More o Más y bajo interpretación de idioma elija español y también tendrá la opción de escuchar solo la interpretación al hacer clic en Mute Original Audio o silenciar el audio original. Después puede pulsar Done y listo. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we will open those audio channels. So again, a globe icon should be popping up at the bottom of your screen that you can click on. We also ask all participants to actively go in and select the English channel to make sure that you don't miss out on any portions of tonight's meeting. Closed captioning is also available. If you'd like to use this option, you can click the CC icon in the Zoom taskbar and then select subtitles to view those on screen or live transcript to see the full transcript on this side panel. And if you need any technical support tonight, you can click on the Q&A button and describe your issue, and our team will help. Lastly, the meeting format tonight includes a presentation followed by a question and answer session. To ask a question, you can press the Q&A button in the meeting taskbar and type your question in. We do encourage you to enter questions throughout the presentation, and we will address all of those questions at the end of the presentation. And for those participants who are attending in person in the RTC conference room, you can write your questions on the paper provided and hand those to an RTC staff in the room, and they will submit those questions for you. At this time, I'll turn the presentation over to Riley Gerbrandt, who is the project manager with the Santa Cruz County Regional Transportation Commission.
Great. Thank you very much, Tiffany. And good evening, everybody. My name is Riley Gerbrandt, Associate Transportation Engineer with the RTC. And today we'll be having a presentation for you on station design for the Zero Emission Passenger Rail and Trail Project. I thank everybody who's participating with us this evening, and thank you for your time with us. And we look forward to providing some new information for you as well as answering questions. Before we begin, I do want to reiterate that we do have the question and answer feature available. I do encourage anybody who has a question that they would like to ask the project team this evening to go ahead and begin writing those questions out in the Q&A. Submit those questions to us, and we'll be tracking them throughout the presentation this evening. And if you can get those questions in earlier, then it helps us to put put together the questions and answer them in a tracking spreadsheet that we're putting together as the evening progresses. But now I'll move into the project overview for those of you who aren't familiar with the project. This is, as I mentioned, the Zero Emission Passenger Rail and Trail Project. And the RTC is looking at adding new high-capacity passenger rail service on the Santa Cruz Branch Rail Line from Pajaro in northern Monterey County to City of Santa Cruz. The project also looks at adding 12 new miles of the Coastal Rail Trail. These are segments 13 through 20, as well as the Capitola Trestle Reach or portion of segment 11, phase 2. On the screen there in the map, you'll see the green lines are the trail alignments, and the dark blue line would be the rail alignment. Next slide. And so far, we've been working on this project and coming to the community for the past about 18 months and working through what we call project milestones of the project concept report. The project has initially identified 4 major milestones for the project, and they are on the screen this right here, with the first one being the preliminary purpose and needs statement from winter of 2024, progressing through conceptual alignments and revised conceptual alignments and station and locations and ridership approach and vehicle types. And now we're in milestone number 4, which is the draft project concept report, and which includes all of the information that's been put together over the last 18 months, including things such as the ridership forecasts, the preliminary cost estimates, as well as what are the next steps for the project development. And in the coming weeks, we'll have opportunity to review the project concept report itself. And then later on in the presentation, I'll show you the ways that you can get engaged over the next several weeks. Next slide. And with that, I'll hand it over to our project team, Paulo. We'll be providing information to you this evening on the station design for the Zero Emission Passenger Rail and Trail project. Thank you. Over to you, Paulo.
Thanks, Riley. My name is Paulo Faria. I'm a transportation architect at HCR, and I'm going to go through some of those concepts. It's early for design per se. I think what we need is to have a sense of the aspirations to include that on the cost modeling exercise. So it's necessary that a certain level of design is used from a scoping perspective, but all those things are conceptual at this level, and we need to engage with the community to get the proper drivers. Next. I think that the way we approach is really about thinking about the user, applying user-centered design. That means the user is the most important thing, because the business case here is to attract people to use the system. So the 3 pillars of this usability or attractiveness is about place, making something that is appropriate for the weather, is appropriate for the climate, but it's also culturally appropriate to the context, right? Something that people will feel civic pride in the infrastructure, and we want to use. That's place. So system is, there's a necessity of this being identified as a system overall, right? There is a system-wide identity that is what will make people feel that we are taken care of, that provides the maintenance, that provides the accountability. So the idea of a systematized approach to the station design is important, because it reflects on maintenance. You can have each station different than the other, because people, once they learn how one station works, they will learn how all stations work, and they will feel that they are being taken care of by this entity that is providing the system. So there is issues of brand and trust to the system that's important. And then those are the kind of two of the pillars, place and system. And then there's the fundamental one is about people, that is providing the best service, the best user experience, the best protection from the environment that you can, because this has direct impact on ridership or usability. Next. Beyond the pillars, if we put our mind on those three main elements, place, system, and people, we can extract some design drivers. Security and safety. This is a great line, and you have to mitigate the existing conflicts. You have to make sure that people understand that the line is there, and you have to provide not just security and safety, but perception of security and safety. Those stations and the public-facing side of the infrastructure has to be perceived to be safe if we want to attract ridership. It's important that we take care of the passenger experience and comfort, and that it's beyond just providing general accessibility. It is protection from the sun, protection from the wind, and protection from the environment, protection from the rail itself. So, and create the headways for this line are not like expected to be every 2 minutes. So there will be people that will be idling in those station environments. So we have to make sure that those station environments are comfortable and provide a good experience. The relationship with connecting destinations, there is always a prioritization of making sure that we connect with major poles of ridership. And then, but it's not just the general arrangement of the stations, but it's about the entrances, the crossings, the visibility of those stations from connecting destinations. Navigation and wayfinding. You want people to, as I said, learn how one station works and learn how all stations work. You want also people to understand where they are in terms of creating their mental map, and really having a progressive disclosure of information, the right information at the right place at the right time, and that includes digital tools that are not in the station environment. Really foster multimodal integration, and it's not just with the metro buses or kind of Amtrak or other operators, but also with the pedestrian and cycling infrastructure, the trail itself, making sure that those connections are possible and legible and easy. Think about climate future and sustainability, and that's not just a nod for global warming, but it's also from a point of view of responsible use of materials and local manufacture if possible, and be climate ready. And that involves resiliency, sustainability, and life cycle of the solutions. And durability and maintenance. This is every system or every kind of piece of infrastructure has a desired life, and something that looks good on day one but doesn't look good 6 months down the road doesn't serve anyone. So thinking about maintainability and durability of solutions is important, and that's why train stations are the way they are, because a lot of that is driven by maintainability. Next slide. There are some kind of a basic constraints or basic facts. The stations are not just the platform, but the platform is your interface with the second most important thing in the system, that is the vehicle. Vehicle specialists will say that the vehicle is more important than the stations. but I'm an architect, so I refuse to think like that. They are equally important. The vehicle and the stations, those are crucial to the service. Platforms have to be flexible enough to accommodate the different configurations. They require full access to the train, so they have to be elevated. They have to really foster beyond ADA, Americans with Disability Act. We should strive for universal design. We have to think about NFPA, that is Fire Protection Code, and foster solutions that implement ZEPRT, that is crime prevention through environmental design, making sure there are clear sight lines, places that people don't hide. Those are kind of really prescriptive requirements to a safe public space. Next. I think what's important as well is that you don't think about the system as a series of stations. The system is really about a full journey experience, and that starts with your digital tool planning, and then comes as you approach the stations that they're visible, legible in the urban realm, that they can be clearly, they are sensitive to their context and they're contextual, but at the same time, they are things that can be read in the public realm and can be findable. There is the experience of ticketing and validation. There is the waiting zone, the riding experience, the wayfinding as you leave the train, so you are oriented and you have your mental map where you want to go, and ultimately your connection to the destination, to area maps and system maps. So we're trying to orchestrate a whole experience and not just the station-to-station trip. Next. We use some prototypical stations just to illustrate the thinking, because as I said, we are not designing at this point, but we are kind of creating requirements for the future designers. So on we have some prototypes that we developed just to illustrate the case. On Beach Street Station, between Beach Street and Pacific, close to the Monterey destination, close to metro bus stops. This station, it is a unique condition. Next, it has a shorter platform because of constraints, physical constraints. But here it illustrates the idea of an entry plaza that engages the urban realm and is populated to a series of different elements. On number one, we have canopies that provide protection at the platform level. Number two, just indicative of the need, not necessarily the location. You need information that is service advisories, real-time information, the system map, the connections map, and the ticketing, right? Being that by ticket vending machines or kind of a manned thing. So this is an important part of the passenger journey. Station signifier that will make sure that people see the station from distance, hopefully better than gas stations type of signs, something that's appropriate for the scale of the place, but still visible to vehicular and kind of and pedestrians and cyclists. A ramp and stair to the platform, because as I mentioned, the platforms have to be elevated. Connection to parking when possible and when it makes sense. We want to foster kiss and ride and park and ride connections. The usability of the system is directly connected with how easy it is to use, and we want to attract all types of users, including the ones that are driving to the station. Bike parking, bike storage, that is very important considering the rail and considering, the future. We want to foster kind of a bike integration. The track crossings that are important from a kind of a management of the curb line. The train itself, and there are some bus stops in the area, and improve crossings to the station area. So this entry plaza, it is the place where people first engage with the system, and from there, you will make your decisions about the next moves, right? The next. A different station is the Capitolo station. The beach station is end-loaded, so you enter the platform from one side only. And we decided to exemplify Capitolo because this is actually loaded from both sides of the platform. So you have a main entrance on the corner of Park Avenue and Bay Avenue that can be a kind of an entry plaza, but you need also a connection mid-block on Park Avenue. And that this is important because that establishes the precedent of a primary entrance and a secondary entrance, making sure that the primary entrance serves the, and it's a matter of having the right of way. So the private entrance is the preferential or primary entrance. It is really one that it will be association to the station identity, and the secondary entrance, it is secondary. Next. And it's the same. The difference here is that we had to duplicate certain elements like the station signifier and the ramps and the information. You don't want people to have to walk the whole distance of the platform to be ticketed on the other side. So you're probably going to have to duplicate some facilities like ticketing and information, ticket validators, and try to get your coverage at both ends of the platforms to make it kind of a more balanced. But ultimately, this just represents the duplication of certain elements that would happen in the end-loaded station just once. Next. And as I said, we are not designing this, but we can stop ourselves from actually thinking of what that means. So making a system that's rooted in Santa Cruz, that a system that belongs to the place, and the most successful systems do that. So it's not just a matter of aesthetics, but it's a matter of actually having some idea of what the system is in terms of its presence on the public realm. So I think that this mood board here will be best served once it comes from yourselves to the community. But for this exercise, we kind of illustrated what it could be. So a reference to boat construction is a maritime environment. A reference to the color of the skyline and the color of the kind of the sunsets. The beach culture. I grew up as a surfer, so I always wanted to surf in Santa Cruz. I never did. I'm from Brazil originally, so I have special empathy to the beach culture and surf culture. The idea of the maritime culture of the brass and the kind of the marine copper that's used on kind of old engines. The wood bridge construction, Victorian architecture, that is really where railroads were kind of crossing all over the world, and the relevance of brick construction to a railroad infrastructure, and the marine environment. I think that those are things that are obvious and kind of they might come across even kind of naive, but those are the things that hopefully we're going to get from the community, right? And that they're going to come from yourselves. But those are our attempt from a cost and scoping perspective to create a scenario that capture the aspiration that this will be important in subsequent phase of design. Next. So we created three concepts. I think you guys saw some of them. I just here to give a bit more explanation. This idea of the brick of something that connects to rail infrastructure. Brick in itself is porous, so it would not be ideal for something that is tag-free or graffiti-free, but terracotta that is a more impervious material would be adequate, and it's a transit-rated material. So if we think about terracotta and this idea of the old rail infrastructure and how we can do a modern project using the old material, there is a lot of opportunities of craftsmanship. There is a lot of opportunity of care on those portals or elements that relate to the trail in a kind of a consistent way. It deals with the issue of predictability because people will associate those structures in all the stations or the stations that that have like canopies. So I think that the idea of an element that provides this continuity and it's sensitive to different contexts and has some resonance with rail infrastructure was something that seemed to us plausible, and that would be interested to hear your opinions about it. Next. And this is an illustration of what this could be, black steel or dark steel with brick. It's something that goes well, and then we could kind of tailor the furnishings like seating, information, signage, lighting around this, something that looks cohesive, that you don't have a lot of conduits exposed, that we are kind of integrating all the systems. And it has a kind of an interesting relationship with the trail when the trail is adjacent or when the trail is across the alignment. Next. Another conceptual idea was this this concept of something that's lighter, like a canopy that is as minimal as it can be, made of steel and ETFE or fabric, or those are exterior grade materials. So this is an illustration of an ETFE pillow, or it could be a single sheet. But the idea here is really put your effort on the ground plane. A series of kind of a moments of the ground plane coming up and down in a mosaic that could be, each station could have a different mosaic. It could be parts of an arts program. And this idea of the ocean and the waves and the ground plane moving with a very light functional canopy on top of it that is as minimal as it can be. Next. I think this is the concept that requires more finesse. It's difficult to illustrate the sinuosity of the ground plane without, incurring in some gestures that don't make sense. So it's probably the most developed challenge, But the idea is here that it's a very light, fit for purpose, minimal canopy, and the ground plane with mosaic and with the opportunity of incorporating some art. I think public art is a very important thing to differentiate station to station. So hopefully down the line, an arts program can be implemented and take this issue of consistent through all the stations with variability through the use of art or some selective materiality and color. Next. And that's our that concept. That is the wood canopy option that seemed to us natural, that in considering the forest, considering the environment, considering the culture of boat building and maritime environments, to do a canopy made of wood is ticks our concerns about sustainability. It is a material that can be quite well used. It needs to be protected to a certain height to avoid tagging and so on. That's what, but it is a great material for the canopy itself. So Some of those things are interchangeable. In this case, in this option, we thought maybe a brick floor, that is a ceramic kind of a floor, could go well with that. But that doesn't mean that other options can have that. So we are testing options just to ensure that we have the aspirations, and from a cost perspective, we are capturing what we seem to be appropriate. In this option, we were thinking about the standing seam metal roof. But that doesn't mean that we couldn't have a glazed roof, or we couldn't have the ETFE roof. So those things are all interchangeable from the point of view of differentiating the options. We combine them with different elements, but they are all interchangeable. Next. And that's a view, and it shows a glazed roof. With protection of the base that probably will have to go a bit higher to avoid I love so-and-so kind of attacks in the wood. But from a functionality and practicality and life cycle, it's an appropriate material. We have done that in the past, and we continue to propose that. I think that's something that can work. So I think that's it. Those are 3 flavors, and as I said, they can be combined differently. We didn't expect to be designing those, but just kind of teasing the opportunities for future designers and ensuring that we are covered from a scoping of those different signage and wayfinding elements and furnishings and aspirations of finishes to something that can be further designed in subsequent phases. And I'll give it back to Riley.
Great. Thank you so much, Paolo. All right, everybody. So that ends the webinar presentation portion of tonight's evening presentation and information session. We have several questions already in our chat that we've been teeing up for answering from the project team. But if you haven't yet had an opportunity to submit your question, please go ahead and click the Q&A button, and we'll add it to our list. And just for everybody's knowledge, we will focus on answering the station design questions first. And if we work through all of those, then maybe there's some other questions that you have about different topics. Feel free to add those in, and we can answer them if we have time at the end of the webinar. But before we get there, I wanted to provide everybody information on the next steps and kind of what the next project activities are. So as you know, we had our draft project concept come out with the virtual online open house going live June 12th earlier this summer. We have our open house online and available at ZEPRT.com, where you're able to view information related to the project concept, including station design. And we have some station design concepts up there. I believe we added some additional content since it first was populated in June 12th. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tiffany. But you're able to go into the online open house and ask questions, provide feedback and comments. That will be live through August 22nd. We actually pushed it back a week to provide some additional time for feedback and comment with respect to the project concept report, which will be coming out next week. And before that happens, we have our office hours tomorrow night as well. So if there's questions that you have, we're going to have a virtual session of office hours tomorrow. And then August 4th and 5th, we have a set of both in-person and virtual office hours all day, August 4th and 5th. Where you're able to come into the project team, sit down with us, and ask specific questions or just spend time discussing the project with us. And there's an opportunity to sign up for different spots for the office hours. You can visit our project website at sccrtc.org/ZEPRT. And there's a way there to sign up for the online, for both the in-person and the virtual open office hours. And then on August 7th, we will have a public hearing at the RTC Commission meeting to receive feedback from both the Commission and from the community on the draft concept report. And then after all of the public comment period closes, the project team will collect all the information and feedback that we receive from the community, from the Commission and our partners, and package that up and incorporate the relevant portions into a final concept report that will be presented to the Commission in the fall. So those are the upcoming activities. We encourage you to be involved. There's going to be some social media opportunities as well. Look for some posts from the RTC, some email blasts, and even, I believe, some radio advertisements. So be listening closely on your favorite station. There might be a ZEPRT radio advertisement for you to listen to. And I think that brings us to the end of the webinar portion, and we are available for our Q&A. So I will hand it back to Tiffany, who will help us tee up the first question, and then we have the project team, including myself, our project manager, Mark McLaren, and also Paolo and his team from the station design group. Back to you, Tiffany.
Thanks, Riley. Yeah, and I was just going to add really quickly on your note about the virtual open house. As Riley mentioned, that did launch on June 12th. There were 2 pieces of information that have been added since that time, so wanted to flag that for everybody. And those 2 things are the more detailed, what we call the strip maps, are now posted on that virtual open house that you can open up in the viewer and navigate to look at the rail and trail alignment, as well as some additional detail on the ridership projections. So if you visited that site around or shortly after June 12th, be sure to check back for that additional information that was posted. And with that, we will now move into the question and answer session. I think Riley did a good job reminding everybody, but if you have any questions as we go along that you haven't heard, feel free to drop them in the Q&A, and we will get through as many this evening as we can. So with that, the first question, it's kind of a combination of a few questions that have been entered. The first part of that is asking, how would you characterize the design information that we've received tonight? Is that preliminary, conceptual, or tentative level of design? And then related to that, just addressing that, how will the project move forward with completing, for example, one station prototype so that the community can give better feedback?
Great question. Thank you, Tiffany, and thank you, community. Wanted to thank everybody in advance for your questions this evening. So yes, at this point, the best way to characterize our level of design would be a conceptual level of design consistent with, a project concept. What we have to do is develop a certain degree of the project in order to develop the other associated elements, such as the alignment, such as the station locations, ridership, and cost estimates. So we have to go through what we call a concept level design, including what Paolo is mentioning, a conceptual level of design for stations. Now, this isn't the end result of the stations, and this is not necessarily will we move forward into final design, but in order to develop our conceptual model for the operations, for the costs, we put together what we call a conceptual level design to be able to do those parts of the project. And the second part of the question, Paolo, if you're able to jump on and talk to us a bit. Tiffany, if you could repeat that portion of the question for Paolo.
Sure, and I think that part of the question is maybe when will the team complete, or will the team complete one station prototype so that the community can give better feedback on the proposed design?
I would totally support that. I think that the more that you can mock up, prototype, and test those elements in 1-to-1 or half scale, the better. I think that, as I said, I think that you need to have a design for them to prototype and mock up some of those elements, but you want all the furnishes and all elements to be properly tested, right? From trash cans to seating to canopies. And if you have a location or a place to actually develop one-to-one prototypes of those things, that was something that we would definitely improve your quality and your cost certainty as well.
And I think, Paolo, how do we go from in a typical design, how to process for a project of this scale? You know, we're at the conceptual level right now, and then we would move into environmental documentation and develop that concept a bit more, and then we would move through into your final design portions. At what point would, I guess, the community see um, a deeper level concept put together where they might be able to visualize it a bit more fully?
Yeah, I think that at the right time, you probably can rely on some other tools as well, from virtual reality and things like that. That's why you probably would do a 30% of final design. That is,
Hmm.
like actual design. You could start using those tools to be able to visualize things. But I think no earlier than 60% final design that you should be really making things to test, right? Because I think you need a higher level of design development to have those things properly test. And I spent a lot of time talking about the trash collection or trash cans that can take a long time, and you probably want to have an operator in place to be, and some certainty of operation and maintainability, who is providing that, and having the people that will be actually getting the trash cans from those trash receptacles before you finalize your design. So you need some mock-ups at this point. So I would say 60% of final design is the earliest that you have physical objects.
Great, thank you, Paolo. And just for everybody's, for those who are asking the questions, um, generally right now we might be, we call it conceptual level design. That might be something like around 10-15% of design. Environmental documentation will further that design level through the preliminary engineering process, and that might get us to around 30% design. And then once you move past the environmental document and into the final design stages, you would do the first portion of that to get you to that about 60% stage that Paolo was mentioning. And then from that point forward is your final design portion. So it is a process, but as we move forward, one of the big tenets of the RTC and of this project team has been really incorporate the community as best we can and bring the community along as we move forward. So there'll be plenty of opportunity for that. Tiffany, let's take the next question.
Sure. And the next question is, what are your plans for parking adjacent to these stations?
That's also a great question. So I'll give a brief answer, and then Mark, you can elaborate a little bit. So at this point, there's several locations such as downtown Santa Cruz, downtown Watsonville, where there's public parking spaces that have been identified that are already available in the general vicinity. So as we move forward into looking at the station amenities, we look first at what's currently available for some of those stations. And some of those stations already have parking spaces that are available, public parking spaces that could be used as part of the station. I don't believe any of the stations specifically have incorporated any new parking associated with the stations. Mark, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure, Riley, I'd be glad to. So yes, you're correct. There are areas along the line now, particularly at the end of the line, where there is public parking that's currently available, as well as locations within proximity for use and for parking. And in addition, there are a couple of the stations along the line where we have evaluated and looked at the potential for providing some additional parking at those locations, but typically with along this alignment and a lot of what we've learned through the development of forecasts for ridership, how people access the system and that sort of thing. Parking at a lot of or I would say the interim stations between really the two major destinations in Watsonville in Santa Cruz doesn't really show that it'll be high demand for individuals who are driving to a location to park for the day. But that is one of the things that gets further vetted as we go through the environmental process in particular. And so as the project evolves, there may be locations where we do determine that there's a necessity to provide some sort of additional parking in closer proximity to a station. Riley?
Thanks, Mark. Yep. And Tiffany, I'll pass it to you for the next question.
Sure, and I'm going to transition us from vehicle parking to bus connections. And we have a few questions that have come in regarding bus service. So one generally that I'll ask and kind of pair this with a specific question. So do we have any concepts of how this would integrate with the bus system? The question asks, wouldn't it make sense to have bus pickup locations integrated with the stations? And then while we're on the topic of buses, there were a few questions specifically related to the location of a bus stop at the Beach Street station.
Great. Yep. So yes, as we've developed the project concept, one of our key partners in developing the project concept and on the project development team was Santa Cruz Metro. We worked a lot, closely with them to develop some of the data going into the ridership forecasts, as well as the ridership model to see how the interface of the bus system and the passenger rail system would potentially operate. And holistically looking at ridership generally for the Santa Cruz County model, the travel to demand model, it looks like at the system as a whole. So not just the train service separate from the bus service, but how would they operate together and how would people choose to use the services if there were both a bus transit and a passenger rail system. One of the key things is how can we better integrate the two transit systems, and as the project progresses, there'll definitely be more and more discussion with Santa Cruz Metro and the future operator of the passenger rail system about how to improve those connections. Places like Beach Street is a great example. We looked at where the current system is located, where the current bus stop is, which is just 100 feet or so north along Pacific Avenue from the current shown location of the Beach Street platform. So when we look at a system like that, we've got already an existing system, and the connection between the two transit modes is pretty easy. You can get off one. Paolo mentioned about this plaza entry, for the station, and people could come from the bus station, cross the plaza, and get onto the passenger rail station. So things like that are things that will continue to be worked out. And there are other areas where there would need to be improvements or changes to the system in order to maximize those connections. So like a West Side Santa Cruz system or station, for instance, there's a lot of interest about getting connections to UC Santa Cruz, and with the station near Natural Bridges Drive, how do we get the users from there to the connection over to likely from Santa Cruz Metro to the UCSC campus. Now, at this point, Metro is not at a position to be able to change any of their bus routes because we're not at that level of project development for the passenger rail system. Changing routes might not happen until the passenger rail system is actually close to operational. But we would obviously look to better utilize those connections. And one opportunity is Pajaro Station, for instance, as a network system hub for connections from passenger rail to both MTS and Santa Cruz Metro. Maybe it could be used also for a future bus station or kind of expanding that capability at the Watsonville Pajaro Junction station. So I think I answered that question. So I'll pass it back to you, Tiffany.
Great, thank you. The next question is asking, why did the Capitola concept design note a 30% canopy?
Oh, yes. So I will note that at this point, if you look at the Beach Street concept and the Capitola station concept, which I think there's a question about where specifically that concept was located. The Capitola station concept is at the intersection of Monterey Avenue and Park Avenue. But for both of the two concepts shown today, we've preliminarily have a 30% canopy coverage for both of those stations. And that's the percentage of the station that has cover. Paolo, can you jump in and describe why at this level of design we would set a 30% target for the amount of canopies?
Well, I think my answer to that is the climate. I think that 30% coverage, it normally varies from 20% to kind of sometimes 50% of the. So this is the percentage of the area of the platform that is being covered. The platform is dimensioned to fit a full train set with expandability and all that. You will not need on day one coverage, even if the ridership of that multiplies multiple times, you're not going to have to cover your full platform. So I think 30% is a good compromise between cost and practicality, usability, and day one need. So I think 30% is what we use as 30% of the area of the platform to be covered as a criteria for the purpose of where we are in the project.
Great. Thanks, Paolo. And you touched on two other things that I noted in the question Q&A queue. So Paolo, I'll be ready for this. I'll post two more questions to you. One is at this level, how does before I ask that one, you talked about expandability of the train sets and the size of the station. We are proposing multiple unit vehicles, which you can expand as demand increases. The station sizing themselves, how do we size that now, and how is that expandable in the future?
So, Paulo, I'll take that one.
Yeah.
Just a lot of discussion on this topic, Riley. So typically, we design a platform with the intent that it's got expandability in the future, because that's a concrete structure that's fairly sizable, but also needs to be able to accommodate typically the length of more than one train. And I say that because we want to be able to have the ability to provide a longer train set in the future if necessary. And that point in time at which that's going to happen is not always known in advance. And secondarily, as we continue through the planning process, as we discussed earlier, we may determine that the length of the train in terms of the capacity that's needed needs to be greater than what is currently envisioned. And so with the intent of making sure that the platform can accommodate some increase in ridership capacity and possibly longer trains in the future. It's typical that those platforms will be designed for a length that's a little longer than what is initially envisioned as an initial train set. Just in the way we are in other areas, as we get through that process, we also may come to the conclusion at some point that maybe the platforms could be a little shorter. But we've designed them with the intent at this point in this stage of the process that we have the ability to expand without disrupting the footprint of what we believe is necessary for the project.
Great. Thanks, Mark. And maybe Mark, if this is a question for you as well. One of the concerns for the project is cost. You mentioned that, and it came up in the conversation there too. And how do we incorporate what we've been doing here in terms of conceptual design for these stations, but also producing something that is cost effective, and where's that balance, and how did we achieve that balance here?
Well, at this point in the conceptual level, we have designed for the knowns that we have, as well as for anticipating some of the things that we know may change during the design process as we move through it. As we've talked before, as you move forward into a stage of, say, 30% design, at which time you've got further definition of the project, not only in terms of its physical needs, but also in terms of the environmental impacts and the other things that will come out of the subsequent steps of work. It's typical to go through a value engineering exercise, and at that point make some decisions on things that you may want to adjust in the scope of the project to make sure that at that point you're providing the best balance in terms of what the cost benefit is for the investment you're going to make.
Okay, great. Okay, back to you, Tiffany. I think I answered a couple of the questions in the queue.
Can I just add one thing on the issue of cost? Right, that is,
yeah, go for it.
I think that in this world of civil works, right, the cost is really in the civil and hard scope. If the materiality of a canopy is the default would be to go back to stainless steel. That is very expensive because you need robustness no matter what. That means you need quality no matter what, and that doesn't preclude that you look at other ways to achieve your robustness, right? So I think that the cost, I wouldn't say that it's not relevant, but sometimes people see nice stations and say, oh, they cost much more than the other ones that are not so nice. But it's not true, because the cost is really in the civil works and the rail works and this type of thing. And I think that save money on what people see and touch and what to contribute to the attractiveness from a usability perspective to the system, it is probably unwise.
Thanks, Paolo. Yeah, those are good things to keep in mind. All right, back to you, Tiffany, for the next question.
Sure. And I'm going to shift gears away from cost and ask a question regarding lighting. Given the impact lighting has on feelings of safety, how will lighting be considered within the station designs?
Absolutely. I think that and I volunteer to answer this.
Go for it.
Absolutely, it's a low-hanging fruit. So the temperature of the color of the lighting we all remember those fluorescent lights on bus stops, from a long time. It has a huge impact on not just the attractiveness of the system, but the feeling of that you're safe because there is, you're visible, and the manipulation of not just artificial light but natural light as well, avoiding kind of a deep shadows and making sure that you have materials that reflect the light correctly. So I think lighting design contributes a lot, not just to well-being, but to visibility of the system, legibility on the urban realm, and making sure that we don't generate light pollution as well.
Great, good answer. Yeah, I wanted to comment on, one of the things that I know the trail projects have been considering are dark sky compliant lighting. To Paolo's point, what we might have considered for transit systems back in the 80s with fluorescent lights, lighting options have come a long ways, and there's actually some really good and effective lighting solutions that can be employed at stations that are not emitting light pollution, or that can be fit into the neighboring surrounds much better than they used to be able to. So good questions. Tiffany, back to you.
Thanks. The next question I'm going to read has a few parts, but the person comments that it would be nice to allow for different flavors depending on where the station is located, since the surroundings differ dramatically from one proposed station location to the next. Example here is the beachy ocean theme by the beach versus a more woodsy near those forest locations, etc. Also, the light design is nice. However, given the winter rain and windstorms, it would be wise to consider a segmented each station, which is closable or can be somewhat more protected during inclement weather. And the question gets at how can the public and community submit ideas on these station designs?
Those are great comments. Thank you very much. And yes, we do encourage comments such as that, and we really are interested in that type of feedback, along with other similar feedback from the community. You can definitely asking the question is great. We do collect the questions and incorporate them into our summary. Um, we summarize the feedback and community input received for every milestone, and that goes into a comprehensive appendix that will be part of the project. You can also submit questions and feedback through the online virtual open house. So there is a page on the online open house that has questions and presents material associated with the station design. So you can definitely go there at ZEPRT.com, which is on the screen here. Visit the virtual open house and submit your comment through that avenue. You can also email us at info@sccrtc.org or zepprt@sccrtc.org. You can write us, come in, give us a call, and sign up for our mailing list. The project website there is also available. And lastly, another plug, come to our office hours, and you can submit questions through the office hour. We take comment cards at the office hours and also record questions. So a lot of opportunities there. Going back to the questions, those are things that we did consider as we was putting together these concepts. I think one thing to reiterate at the beginning of Paolo's presentation is the feeling of continuity and system connectivity and system use. So as we looked at, well, should we have a station that is, maybe emblematic for Santa Cruz, and one that's specific for Capitola, and one that's specific for Watsonville? There's a lot of cultural kind of locality specific things that can go into that. But as you differentiate one station from another, you begin to lose that continuity of the user experience. And so it's this balance of making it something that the user who jumps on at one station comes off at another station and then travels again to a third station. The user experience for them needs to be consistent so that they know what to expect, know where to find things, can navigate the system easily. So you might not have something as different as a woody theme and a beachy theme along the system, but we do have the ability to have variability among the stations. So at a Capitola station, you might have a Capitola specific theme to that one. While it fits within the overarching system theme, maybe there's some specific features that are, Capitola specific, and that goes for, all the other stations as well. So as we progress through from concept to, preliminary engineering and then final design, there'll be more opportunity to see how that could fit into the station design more specifically, and for the community to provide more feedback. And I think one thing, Paolo mentioned just briefly, but we had talked a lot about it as from the project team perspective, is that mood board, or that, the board of what goes into the station design. Tiffany, if you can flip over to find that one and bring it up. Part of what we might do with the next level of design is develop this mood board, more specifically, come to the community and really through a consensus and community-based process to develop this more, and so that the station design can really reflect the Santa Cruz experience more uniquely. I think I got them all there. Did I miss any on that question, Tiffany?
I think you covered most of it. Thank you, Riley.
Sure thing. Yep.
Okay, and I do want to note we probably have time for one or two more questions. So first I'll pose a question from someone sitting in the RTC conference room, and they asked about the actual station locations, where information about station locations is available, and also they were interested in learning about the two stations in Aptos. Riley,
Okay.
I'll let you take that one.
Sure. So to learn more specifics about the actual station locations, the virtual open house is a great opportunity. As Tiffany mentioned, we have those strip maps now available, where you can open up the maps and see the alignments more specifically. And also we have some maps on that online open house showing where the stations are located. And in terms of Aptos, we have only one Aptos station in the concept at this point, so that would be an Aptos Village. And I think the strip maps would be the location to view those in more detail.
Yeah, maybe I'll just add to that, Riley. Those strip maps that are on the virtual open house are the same maps that we have available at the in-person office hours as well. So if you're not finding the information you want or that you're looking for on the virtual open house yourself, you're always welcome to join us virtually or in person at those office hours we have coming up again, as Riley mentioned.
Yeah, and we can, one-on-one, talk about your questions regarding stations at those office hours.
Okay, great. The next question I have here is asking, are we using a standard platform height for the conceptual design? And if so, what is that?
So I do know that we're having a uniform platform height for the whole system, because we're having the train set that we're going to be using. We'll have to have a consistent station height across the whole system, so that we have level boarding at all the locations. Paolo, do we have a particular station height that we're using in the concepts at this point?
Yes, Mark, remind me, it's 2 foot something, 2'4", I think, that is above grade.
Yeah, it's at the minute that question came up, I started drawing a blank. I actually believe, Riley, that the what has been assumed is 30 inches above the top of rail.
Mm-hmm.
For that platform height. There is some variability in that as we go through vehicle design, but I think at the design assumption at this point was 30.
Great.
Yeah, and that's to allow level boarding, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that will wrap us up for tonight. We're just at our end time here. I know that we didn't get to all of the questions tonight, but as I mentioned earlier, we are capturing all your questions and incorporating them into the work that the project team is doing through our Milestone 4 outreach, and they do all get summarized and put into the Milestone 4 engagement summary memorandum that we put together. Usually we've been providing those at a RTC meeting that follows each of the milestones. I do want to invite everybody to participate in the process. However, works best for you. There's a lot of opportunities that are on the screen here. Come to our office hours and visit the online open house and participate in the process. I do appreciate everybody coming out this evening. It's been great having you, and I appreciate the questions. And we look forward to continue to engage with you. And just as another plug, and to answer one of the questions from the queue that I noticed, be on the lookout for more information as we drop it in the coming couple of weeks. We do have some information blasts, and we'll send out some press releases and info blasts and email alerts when we have more information coming out, such as the draft project concept report itself. So stay tuned, and if you want to be the first to know, sign up for our mailing list at the link on the screen here, sccrtc.org/ZEPRT, and you'll be first to know when new opportunities are available. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.